The New York Knicks right now look like an absolutely terrifying postseason team. And even though in the middle of the year everybody got excited about them, I feel like people have just kind of forgotten about the Knicks. And the whole premise of this video is if I was one of these contenders in the Eastern Conference, one of these top tier teams, I would not want to play this Knicks team. And I don't think a lot of these other teams want to play them either. Obviously, it's been a great season for them. Jalen Brunson has truly broken out as one of the better guards in the entire league. They've made some moves in the middle of the year. They've really put together a roster that fits incredibly well. And I think in the postseason, they're going to perform really well as well. Last year, of course, they were good in the playoffs. They absolutely destroyed the Cavs in the first round, a Cavs team that a lot of people, myself included, really liked, and they were just tougher than them. They guarded better than them, and that kind of style, I think, is going to lend itself well to what the Knicks could do in the postseason. The weird thing for them throughout the entire season is that they've looked really good. They've put together a really strong record. They're going to contend to be a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference and host a first-round playoff series. And they haven't even really been healthy this year. Julius Randle has been hurt for a while. OG Anunoby was really good when he first got traded to New York, and now is still trying to recover from an elbow injury. He's kind of in and out of the lineup now after having surgery. They haven't had Mitchell Robinson for like basically the entire season, and all three of those guys will, I mean, Mitchell Robinson maybe, but the first two certainly will be back for the postseason. And we haven't even seen what this team really looks like with Randle, Brunson, and OG all playing. And even when they're missing some of those guys, this is a really tough team to play. And again, when they get to the postseason, I can really see them thriving. Of course, it all starts with Jalen Brunson as the engine of all of this, as the creator of everything for them. I honestly can't believe how good he has become in New York. His style of play where he's just always in control, this like herky-jerky style where he gets foul calls, he gets these weird angles, he has incredible touch around the rim, he's improved tremendously as a three-point shooter, and he's a good facilitator for them as well, and it establishes a hierarchy for them that they just didn't have before he got there, where it was, kind of Julius Randle's team, and that just didn't really work a ton, whether it be in the postseason or down the stretch of regular season games. And I think that's my favorite thing about the Knicks right now, is everything is really well defined and clearly defined, right? Like OG Anunoby is this connector, great defender, two-way piece for them. Julius Randle is the secondary scorer. Jalen Brunson's the primary guy. They've got all these role players that guard and shoot. Hartenstein's been awesome for them at the 5. And once they get fully healthy, like I said, I would be really concerned to play this team. One of the issues I have with them at the moment as we go into the postseason, though, is certainly Julius Randle, not only in terms of his health. Obviously, we want to see what he looks like when he comes back, but he's just had some really tough postseason performances in the past, really struggling with inefficiency. Granted, it was in a different role where he, was kind of asked to be the main primary creator for them. But there have been like some historically bad postseason series from Julius Randle in the past. And as good as Brunson is, as good as the rest of the roster is, he's got to be really good if they're going to look at potentially knocking off some of these top contenders in the Eastern Conference. But I like, some of the other pieces they have around him as well. Bogdanovich has been solid for them as a creator, as a floor spacer, and a decent defender as well, just adding a little bit more size for them on the wing. And then when you think about them matching up against other teams in the Eastern Conference, if you're playing a team like Milwaukee, they have one of the better Giannis matchups in the entire league in OG. Nobody's going to completely slow down Giannis, but the Knicks have traditionally done a pretty good job against him, building a wall, things like that. And of course, OG is a really good primary defender with his size and his defensive instincts and his length to put on Giannis. Historically, the last 2 seasons, they've played Boston strangely well. Last year, especially, for whatever reason, they just aren't really afraid of Boston. If they were to get in a series with them, I absolutely think that the Knicks would believe that they should win the series. And those are 2 of their biggest threats right now, of course, in the Eastern Conference. We saw them dismantle the Cavs last year, or might be seated ahead of them this year, but certainly I wouldn't, pick against New York in that series. We don't know what's going to happen with Philadelphia in terms of waiting on Joel Embiid to come back and be healthy. And then everybody else in the conference, with the exception of the Heat potentially kind of mirror a lot of the stuff that the Knicks do. I'm not especially concerned about anybody else in the East for the Knicks to have to kind of work through in terms of it being this huge mismatch, except for potentially Milwaukee and Boston. And those are 2 teams that they've played well in the past. And one other piece of this too that I think continues to get discounted, but is going to be a massive deal for the Knicks. They have a fantastic home crowd. Like if they're hosting playoff series, like if they have home court advantage against anybody other than Milwaukee or Boston, that's an incredible advantage for them. Their home crowd is tremendous. They play awesome at home, and that's something that just doesn't get talked about as much anymore because it doesn't feel like home court advantage means as much to these teams anymore, but it definitely seems like it's something that matters for the Knicks. And the other really interesting part of this, when I'm talking about, the league being scared of the Knicks, it's not just this postseason. they're building towards something as well. I mean, whatever they do in the offseason, they're going to be better next year as they get, OG Anunoby hopefully re-sign and get fully healthy, have some more internal growth on the roster, and then potentially add a piece because they still have, a ton of other assets to add to this roster if they want to after the year. And that's kind of what I mean. Is like the Knicks have never really been over the last 10 to 20 years positioned this way where they're good now. They clearly have, room for improvement, and they have tons of opportunity to improve in the offseason as well. They haven't really put themselves in that position in 10, 20 years plus. And it's something that the league hasn't really had to deal with in a while. And I think this is a very scary franchise moving forward in terms of possible contention because of what they could do in the offseason, whether it be Donovan Mitchell, whether it be even more into the future than that. They're always going to be in play for some of these big-time stars, and it just feels like there's a lot of momentum behind this Knicks team right now that just hasn't really been there in the past, which, again, just leads me to the point that I made earlier. It's not just within the season, but going into the offseason as well. Everything feels very clearly defined for the Knicks right now. It feels like there's a clear direction for where the franchise wants to go in the future, clear direction for the individual roles for players on the team right now. And that's just a really exciting and a really cool thing. Now, obviously, they could lose in the first round easily. This is not some kind of juggernaut team. I'm not trying to tell you that, they're guaranteed to make the conference finals or the finals or anything, but I could see them in the conference finals. I could see them beating Milwaukee or honestly even Boston in a certain series, depending on how the three-point shooting stuff goes. The Knicks have really well positioned themselves, maybe better than most teams in the Eastern Conference in terms of being able to have immediate success this postseason and then also moving forward into the future. It's going to depend on how Jalen Brunson performs in the playoffs. It's going to depend on them getting healthy, Julius Randle being really good. There's still a lot of question marks, certainly for the Knicks, and I think that's one of the big reasons why people haven't really been discussing them as much lately, because they had this great run in the middle of the year when they first got OG, and then now they've just kind of cooled down. They're trying to get to the end of the year and they're trying to be healthy, but this is a team that is going to compete. I love Josh Hart. I love Dante DiVincenzo. McBride is good. Like, they've just got pieces. They've got guys coming off the bench in waves, and it feels like a team that just everybody that comes on the floor plays confidently because they know exactly what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing to help their team. And I'm just really, really excited to see who they're going to match up with in the postseason and how far they could potentially go and what that could mean for the next couple of seasons of New York Knicks basketball. And imagine if they make the conference finals and then they get, Donovan Mitchell or someone in the offseason, or they're able to potentially, way down the road get Luka or Giannis or Embiid. Like, this feels like a realistic situation right now for the Knicks in a way that it just hasn't felt in a very long time. And so when I say that the league is scared of the Knicks, I think some people are going to think I'm overestimating their ability in the postseason. One, I don't think that I am, but two, it's just a general, feeling around the league right now where it's like the Knicks are definitely on the way. Like, they could be a top 2 seed in the conference next year, and they could be, a contender over the next handful of seasons because of the moves they've made, bringing in Brunson, retaining Randle, and then continuing to add assets to the roster as well, whether it be post-Kristaps Porzingis trade all those years ago or moving up and down in the draft to continue to add assets. They've drafted extremely well as well, and I'm just really excited to see what the future of Knicks basketball looks like.